Hey everybody, it's Sean Bulle the Kid. On this video, I'm going to tell you about something extremely unusual that two guys found in southwest New Mexico in the 1970s. Now, we just happen to know these guys personally, and so we've heard these stories firsthand, and what they found seemed almost impossible. I couldn't make sense of it at the time. But since then, these guys have passed away. And now I think it would be a shame for their stories to be forgotten. So I'm going to tell their story. Now, before we begin, if you like stories like this, or you like stories about lost Spanish gold, treasure hunting, outlaws, the Old West, stories of the unusual, the amazing, especially in the American Southwest, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I've got some videos coming out in the future you're going to like. So please hit the subscribe button. And if you like this video, hit the like button. Every time you hit the like button, it helps my channel. So let's get right to it. When I first heard this story, I was only 14 years old. I was about to enter high school in Silver City, New Mexico. And at the time, my dad was a welder, and he worked out at Kennecott, which was a mine smelter outside of Hurley, New Mexico. And what that was is they have a big open pit copper mine over at Santa Rita, and they would ship the ore over to Hurley, and then they would process that and extract the copper. So he was over there, and he worked with an awful lot of interesting characters. Now, some of these guys on their spare time, they would either go hunting, or what was an interesting pastime for some of these guys was they would go gold prospecting. And a lot of them had been all over the place looking for gold. Well, it just so happened these two guys were southwest of Deming, New Mexico, and just northeast of Hachita in that area. And they were walking for miles. And they're walking along a ravine, and they had a dog with them. And the dog would zigzag back and forth, smelling this, looking at that. But they got to this one place where something caught the dog's attention. So they thought, oh, we'll go up. It's a little bit higher ground out of the ravine. So they went up above the ravine to see what the dog was looking at. The dog was looking into a perfectly round hole that was probably around shoulder width of a man. And they describe this as almost flat ground everywhere. But there's this round hole. And if you look in this round hole, there was a cave. But it didn't go very deep. They could see the floor of the cave probably 8 feet down, something like that. So they thought they'd have a look at it. So the one guy lowered himself down through the hole. And what he saw blew his mind. Now, keep in mind, these guys have been in so many mine shafts, caves, caverns, things like that. They've seen it all, but they have not seen something like this. And he called his buddy. His buddy went down in the cave. And they were just in awe, because the way they described it was kind of a tunnel that was only maybe 20, 30 feet in length. And it went like this. And the entire cave going up the walls was rib bones. These guys, every time they told this story, they said they were standing inside of a whale in the ground, in the middle of nowhere, in the desert, in southwest New Mexico. And the way they describe it is just like a whale. And so when I heard this, I thought, how can that be? There's no ocean there. It just didn't seem possible. Why is there a whale in New Mexico? Well, this was the 1970s, so they did a really poor job of remembering where this was. Now, part of the reason it was hard to remember where it was is because all the ground was relatively flat. It went for miles and miles and miles with just a bunch of sand and sagebrush. But they got back, and they have not only told this story to me, my family, their relatives, but I'm positive they told it to other people, especially around Hurley, New Mexico. So some of you guys, if you're local to Hurley, may have heard them talking about this. And if so, drop me a comment or send me an email. But this fascinated me and it baffled me. I was such a nerd in high school. I had to research everything. I mean, I was always looking for Spanish treasure. My dad was dragging us off into the Black Range looking for the Spanish cannon all the time. But I had to kind of figure out why in the world would a whale be down there. And the way they described this cave, they had absolutely no doubt they were standing inside the rib cage of some large thing like a whale, and they only said whale. But when I started looking into it, I started finding books that showed maybe a long time ago, a very, very long time ago, an ocean used to stretch right up through the central part of North America. And a lot of the diagrams for the ocean that stretched through there showed the shoreline kind of in this area. So I got to thinking, what if this thing was beached? What if this thing was in that ocean and ended up beached and then somehow quickly buried before it could decay? The other possibility I had was I immediately thought of Nessie over in Scotland, the Loch Ness Monster. And I knew that there were some dinosaurs that resembled Nessie. And they kind of had that big body like a whale had. And I considered that maybe it was one of them. I don't know. But see, the guys, they just kept saying that this round hole was the blowhole for a whale. I don't know if it was because of the location they went in to get inside of this thing. I'm not sure. But that's what they said. Now, although these guys really had a hard time getting their story straight of exactly where this was, they both agreed on the area where it was, but they couldn't figure out how far down it was or anything. So, finding it was a real task. And I never did find it, but looked for it a couple times. But these guys never changed their story about the fact that they truly believed they were down in a hole standing inside of a whale. And that has stuck with me to this day. I keep thinking about somewhere down there, southwest of Deming, northeast of Hachita, somewhere in that desert, could be a prehistoric creature that was quickly buried and then its insides hollowed out. Wouldn't that be an amazing find? That'd be amazing. And now we have more technology. Back then the guys didn't have GPS. They couldn't mark where they were. It was the 1970s. But nowadays, who knows? Maybe somebody will be able to find this thing and document it. And so, anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this story. It was not something I expected to hear about in the desert in New Mexico. Never would have pictured that. But these guys were absolutely, unwaveringly certain that's what they were inside. So, catch you later. Bye.
Bulle, the kid.